Hello there, Sir from 17 once again. This is my God of War, God mode, pain, no damage. We are post the Guardian, and we're now taking on a bunch of Legionnaires with some Harpies. And this will become a common theme in God of War games where you get access to magic, and then they do a bit of a tutorial to give you a power fantasy with the magic. And then when you do a challenge run where you can't use bloody magic, it turns into a fight that sometimes can be really hard. Not always. But for instance, if you do a no-grabbing run of this game, you have to fight Medusa for like 20 minutes. Because she's got insane HP if you don't grab her, you know? It's designed so that you don't kill her before you get to grab her, because they want to teach you the whole grabbing stuff, you know? They have this really cool mechanic with Gorgons, and they want to show it off. But if you circumvent that particular restriction, you find that the game goes way longer than you ever anticipated. And these moments are very similar to that as well. So you'll notice I went up on the top to get rid of the Harpies, and now I'm going to try and get rid of the Legionnaires by launching them and then sticking them in this vat. The problem that you need to be careful of here is that, of course, like anything else, when there's a lot of enemies and you're trying to do things with the enemies, between your invincibility frames is the times when you are going to get smacked, of course. And that is as you get towards the grab and when you come down afterwards. You know, you can't always be safe in this game. You are safe a lot of the time, and you can use this to your advantage, but you also need to be aware that there are moments when you might get whacked if you're not paying attention, and of course if you're not holding block. But it seems like I'm just going to be doing the air crush here, just bounce the Legionnaires, jump up and start striking them, which is not a bad strategy. I did think I'd show you some ring outs, but maybe I came down here just to show you that you can. And I think there's only 2 guys left now, so... It's interesting watching this as well, because some of the detections on some of the things that Kratos does in the first game, they feel a bit janky. You do get used to them quite quickly, and then you go and play the other games, and the other games change it so much, all your timings are wrong. It's kind of odd like that. But transitioning forward, we come back towards this part of the temple, and we've got a couple more of the gold-armoured Legion guys, and we're just going to throw them into each other, because it does so much damage. And then we'll do some bouncing, then we'll do some more of the combo looping. And now we're interested in the nightmarish part of most people's casual playthrough, which is the Cliffs of Madness, and of course the Satyrs, which, if you're a God of War fan, you will already be very familiar with this monster, because they're famous. In a game where guarding is really, really good, you have a creature that can stop that. And there aren't that many in these games, so when they turn up, they mean business. And the scary thing about Satyrs is they're almost never on their own, and that's when they become problematic. A single Satyr, you just grab spam. Grab spam, train your wrist, train your fingers, because you do it for a while, it takes a while. And you're okay. The moment someone else is there, though, it gets weird. Because I think the throw you do on the Satyr is not invincible, so other people can engage, and that's when things get really, really scary. However, there's a lot of places in this game where you can use the fact that they put the Satyrs in these lofty arenas, and you can just simply kill them by throwing them off the edge, like I'm doing right now. And there's only one real place where I think the Satyr is going to be a huge problem. I mean, they're always a huge problem, but a real problem is, of course, when we go to Hades, when we go to Hell. And that's just because you have to fight 2 of them at the same time, and it's kind of mean because there's a lot of them. And I really think that fight stands out personally, because most of the game has been really elegant and really well designed and balanced around, you know, it's hard and it's demanding, but it doesn't feel like they just kind of wanted to fuck you, even though, you know, there are some choices that definitely feel that way. Of course, with the family protecting and, you know, some of the, like, the Architect's Tomb and everything. But then they're just like, here's 8 or 10 Satyrs, however many it is. It's a lot. And most people are just going to get them stuck behind a chest and then deal with the one. I do a combination of that. And if you're using Artemis, you can just knock them off, can't you? Which is really good. Some people like jump between the platforms, and I don't really know what that strategy is because I've not watched too much of it, but I've seen somebody try to do that. I kind of wish there was just, I don't know, maybe I just need to play against them for longer. Maybe there really is a manipulation on the satyrs where you can just kind of fight both of them at the same time and beat their ass. And that's the kind of thing I like to do. It's just, because I played this as a kid, I've got all this weird baggage from being a child playing a game, you know? I don't know if you guys have that, but whenever I go back to the games from my youth, I get the trauma. I get echoes of the trauma that they caused me when I wasn't very good at them or when I was too stupid to know what I was doing. And it still kind of is in the back of your head, you know, of where you struggled when you were younger. And nowadays, I don't get that at all. You know, I'm older, of course, and I go to games, I'm like, I'll figure this out, it'll be fine. Games are a lot easier now. But when you come back to some of these bangers, and it's just like, damn, these games were hard. These games didn't give a shit. You remember, don't you? Just, I'm so mad. I'm like 8 and I'm pissed off. Even though I was older than 8 when this game came out. Because I was in secondary school. But you don't lose that if your brain works like mine. So all the PS2 era games, they've kind of got a little bit of them where they live rent-free in my head. And even when I come back and I beat them up and I destroy them, I still have that part of me that's like, oh dude, I'm a little scared, you know? It's that kind of... that juvenile fear that's just seeded and I can never get rid of it. And it's so funny, because I feel that way about Resident Evil 4. Yet that's a game that I know really well and I've done 2 no damage runs on YouTube. You know, I've played completely differently both times. I've done it on 2 different platforms, 2 different control schemes, and yet still, when I think of that village, dude, I remember the day that game came out and how just like scared I was of it. And it's so fascinating because it's like, dude, why do you have this inside? Like, this game is free. I know exactly what everyone's going to do and exactly what I need to do to stop it. It's so weird. Yet my brain is just, yeah, but remember when it didn't go like that? It's really funny. It's the same with Devil May Cry 1. Devil May Cry 1, there's just something in that game, even though I think it is probably the easiest Devil May Cry when it comes to, you know, pushing it. For some reason, it sits there like this gargoyle on a church tower over me. And there's a little bit here as in this game too. It's so fascinating, the damage that gets done like that, the mental damage. And don't get me wrong, I think this game is incredibly difficult. You know, it's such a challenging game. And you do have to do a lot of things to make it challenging. And that's one of the reasons why people really compliment something like Ninja Gaiden. You don't have to do much in Ninja Gaiden to make that game hard. It's just fucking hard. It's always hard. No matter how good you get, it's always hard, you know? Whereas in this game, if you play casually, you will destroy this game. Because Kratos is so bloody capable. He's so powerful. It's such a power fantasy. But you strip those building blocks away, and it starts to get real equal real quick. And then you have to, like, look at this. Like, how long we've been fighting for. And admittedly, there are better ways to fight these guys. There are better ways to do this. Oh, I don't like this room, dude. So I think I'm going to take damage here, guys. You can do this without being hit because I've done it. Sadly, on this run, I don't think I do. And of course, you know, there's people like Zim that does this segment without getting hit. But this is just grind the game until they don't shoot you. And I'm sorry, guys. I was not in the mood to fuck with this. And I could have put a save state, and I could have looped the save state, but I was just like, fuck this noise, it's stupid. And then look at this. I get like a perfect run. I get shot once, and then no one can hit me. I have no idea why the game does that. Maybe there's some programming underneath or something, but how stupid was that? And then as soon as you go across here, you get another satyr. But there's an edge down here, so we can stick him off. But that, to me, just a show of hands, guys, in the comments. I love God of War. I love God of War 1. Do you not think that sequence is a bit mean? There's a few parts of this game where it's just like, fuck you. Just, that's all it is. It's just like, fuck you. It's cheesy, it's douchey, and it works. And I kind of don't like that at all. Maybe that's just part of the game, you know, maybe you've accepted it, maybe you think it's cool, maybe you like the fact it's a bit mean. To me, I just think, why would you do this? And they do it a lot. They do it in fucking Chains of Olympus. When you're trying to move that bloody switch and there's that Minotaur and they're shooting at you. Like, they do it all the time. Just this weird fucking, everyone gets to shoot you while you're doing something. Like, why? Horrible. But speaking of not so horrible, we have more of the Tormentors. And this is one of the most troublesome Minotaur in the game, but for some reason I like him a lot. And I think it's because I just get to practice doing all the confirms. But same concept here. You can ring them out if you want to, if you can. Or you can juggle them, or you can do the throw loops when they're in the air. It's so consistent. And then we've got satyrs. So 2 satyrs. That's so funny. Well, there's now 1 satyr, or potentially no satyrs. No, I think he didn't fall down. But be really careful here, guys, because this enemy, the moment you think he can't hit you, he can. Like, he's that kind of guy. This thing is so fast, it covers so much range, and it's just really tricky. It's definitely an enemy that deserves its reputation. Everybody remembers the satyrs, because they just kick your ass. And then we have a legionnaire with some archers and another one of the minotaurs. But thanks to this, we have a free shotgun blast, so we're just going to use the shotgun over here and get rid of everybody. And if you get lucky, you might get a couple more there without killing the archers. What a fun move. Collision might be my favourite thing about this game, and I always knew about it, but I didn't really know about it, you know? I knew that when you hit enemies into other enemies, they seem to die quickly. I just didn't really know what was going on there. And then coming back to the game, now that I understand so much more, and I know what collision is in a video game sense, and then we can see how it affects this game. And then you watch the videos where they tell you the number and what the damage is on the collision, and you just realise how nuclear it is. It's so strong. And it makes me wonder how it's handled in some of the later games, because I know that you can still throw enemies into other enemies and stuff, because you kick the dogs and whatnot. But I wonder if it's as powerful as this. I know they changed Orion's harpoon, and I feel like you can't control it to the same extent, which I think is a bit of a shame. Because there's definitely a skill ceiling there, and you can tell a decent player, or like a good player from a decent player, because they know how to position enemies so that they're using collision and using space and things. Oh wow, I didn't even get my launch. I was too slow. That was unfortunate. Well, beat the shit out of this guy. Look at him. What a beautiful game, dude. I love this game. And then we've got that weird puzzle coming up, which, of course, you're not going to see that stuff because it's just the fights. In a pain run, showing the puzzles, unless you've got some super sexy shortcut or some cool, like, you know, sequence break, I don't really see the point in seeing the puzzles in a run from me. Like, if this was a traditional walkthrough and you were struggling with the game, then that would be frustrating because you wouldn't get it. But this is not the channel to watch for a straight walkthrough of this game. I wish my channel would have been around when this game was new. I wish I'd have known how to do any of this when this game was new. Can you imagine? Like, YouTube wasn't even around, was he? At the very early 2000s, it came a bit later. Was it 2005, 2006, I think? And then we're back on the wall stuff, which, you know you love my wall stuff. And I've not sped this up, so I'm going to. Life is far too short to watch me hit these guys 100 times. And it's funny too, because I don't know what it is about this run, but it spooked me out of playing how I normally play. I respected these sequences way too much, just because I don't like them. And you might be thinking, what does that mean, Chris? Usually, I throw everyone. I just grab them and rip them off the wall. But I tend to get hit when I do that, you know? Because I'm not very good at it. I just kind of brute forced it when I used to play in the good old days. Because I did challenge runs of this game back in the day, in like the mid-2000s. It was God of War that kind of did that. God of War 2. When I looked on the internet to see what people were doing with God of War 2 on Titan, that's where I saw Pain and things of that nature, and I saw Shinobi doing weird things. So that made me want to do the weird things as well and see what that was all about. But back then, I wasn't a no damage guy, or even considering that kind of playstyle. That was Godfather Dictator that inspired me to mess around with that stuff, and truth be told, I like no damage, but I don't love it. You know, it's like a standard now on videos and YouTube and everything that people expect. And I think once you get used to doing something like that, if you weren't to do it, people would probably be like, well, what are you doing? You know, you took damage. When sometimes, I think it can be more interesting to take damage to get interesting things to happen. Which is one of the reasons why you don't see a lot of gameplay from me where I intentionally use hyper armor to tank a hit and then hit a boss. Because it doesn't fit into that criteria. And I always think it's interesting, no damage, the way it kind of progressed. Because when you first see it, you see a lot of stuff like no hurt. Do you remember no hurt? There was a lot of those back in the day. Because in the arcade it was no miss, which is an interesting one. That's where all that stuff comes from, I would imagine. And now, the culture has moved towards no hit. Even though there's been no hit before. Whereas now they call it hitless. Which is just pedantic, really. It's just a different word, isn't it? And yet people look at that as the most interesting thing now. If you do the whole game without being hit, you can even take damage, and people don't give a shit. As long as you don't get smacked, then it's fine. And that seems to be the popular one. Unless you're Carcinogen. If you're Carcinogen, you can do segmented no damage and people love you. But everybody else, a bit more resistance unless it's this hitless stuff. And I've seen people talk about this a lot on videos. People get really... They get quite semantic about the idea of the difference between the two. And I think there are differences, big time. But it's like anything else. If you do it, you get to distinguish what the terms are. You get to tell people what it is. You know? Like, you could say that a no damage run is a no hit run if you never get hit. But for instance, look at this game, right? I've got some segments in here that are no damage, I've got some that are not. You know those times when I get pushed by the centaurs and it does blood but it doesn't hurt me? Is that no hit? Because it doesn't do any damage, it seems like, but it fucking hits you. So does that mean that if you want to do no hit on God of War 1, do you have to reset every time you get pushed? Because technically, it just hit you. Kratos went down to one knee, there was blood, all the thing. Everything in the game, all the language there is telling you that you got hit, but you didn't get damaged. So does that mean that a no damage player can take that hit, but a no hit runner can't? You see how stupid it gets? And that's one of the reasons why I don't fuck with that stuff, because I just think at the end of the day, it's just arseholes being arseholes for the sake of being arseholes. And I just don't think it's very meaningful. And I do think it's very fad specific as well. Because there's a website on the internet, guys, right, called like hitless.com or something like that. And it's full of the Souls stuff. And the Souls stuff is really impressive when you watch it once, but then after that you just realise it's a bunch of people stealing the same tech off the guy that found the cheesiest way to fucking do it. And don't get me wrong, there's still skill in beating a game, doing it very decisively, and a lot of execution in not getting hurt. But to me it's not that impressive. I don't really care for it. In spite of the fact that there are some really impressive runs and some really impressive players. And then to make it even worse, that website thinks it's like the fucking premier place to be for not taking any damage, even though it was made like 3 fucking years ago. There's been people doing no damage for 30 years, and these cunts turn up and be like, oh, we invented it, which they didn't. And then the best part is that, you know, if you apply to have your hitless run added, you can be declined. Because essentially what they really want to do is they want to do this big monopoly on Souls garbage. Because they think Souls is the hardest game in the world, when in reality, if they played this game, they'd get their fucking ass beat. If they played Ninja Gaiden, they'd get their fucking ass beat. It's like, come on now. Let's not even joke here, right? And my friend is the best Ninja Gaiden Black player in the world. And he submitted a hitless run of Ninja Gaiden Black on normal. Beats the whole game, single segment, doesn't get hit once. And they refused it. Think about that, guys. Do you know how many people in the world can do that? It's probably 3 right now. And that's at a push because only one of them's done it. I can't remember if JTB's done it. He might have done it. But I would say right now there might be 3 guys on this planet that can do that. And they declined it. My fucking dog could beat Dark Souls hitless. It's just madness to me. That Ninja Gaiden run is harder than any Dark Souls run you've ever watched. Any run you've ever watched. You don't have what it takes to do that. It doesn't exist in you. Because the people who can do that have been playing that game for 20 years. At a level you can't even imagine. And they still play it, and they're still sharp. And even those players took months of grinding. That's how hard that game is. So I just think it's just profoundly insulting that that run would be declined in this culture of Souls invented difficulty and the Souls runs is the hardest thing in the world. Like, go watch someone clear Pac-Man, dude. You have no idea how difficult that is. Like, can you clear 3 screens on fucking Donkey Kong? Because I know I can't. It's hard. And what's happening now and what's making me really annoyed is that we're now at this turning point in games where the common gamer has a completely splintered and delusional sense of what fucking difficulty is. And it's really sad, because everybody thinks like it's Dark Souls, it's Sekiro, you know, they think these are the hardest games in the world. Yeah, if you go to any arcade that has any arcade games in it that's not like trying to steal your money like a slot machine, those games will beat the shit out of you. Because everything was hard back then. And if you're too young to know that we're essentially this coddled generation of fucking Mongols that can't even press the buttons because instead of, you know, learning and practicing and putting in the time to become a better player, people instead wait until they make the games easier. So the games play themselves, you think you're fucking great, and at the end of it they make an accolade trailer where they pat you on the back going, good job dude, you didn't do anything. And it's madness. It's super, super frustrating. And then we get all these wonderful discussion boards filled with, I beat X game, listen to me because my opinion is like more learned now, you know? And it's so weird to me. It's like, it's the equivalent of a scholar that goes to Jerusalem or goes to like Vatican City and reads all the original text in their original formats and translates them and gets the source, you know, and they come back and like, I know what I'm talking about. The difference is that's like 30 years of a person's career academically, whereas now all you do is get a fucking platinum on Bloodborne. I platinum Bloodborne, I don't even fucking care about bloody platinums. Did it by accident. And it's so funny too. Because people say things like, I platinumed Bloodborne, I'm not a bad player. What does that mean? How has that become part of the discourse? How is that the discussion that we're having now? You collected several arbitrary garbage things that took no skill, effort or knowledge, and all of a sudden, I'm supposed to respect you like you're on the podium at the Olympics. Why? It's just baffling. It's so baffling to me. This fight's kind of tricky, by the way. You want to use that exploit with the camera up in the corner. If you do that, you don't have to engage everybody at the same time, and it's a big lifesaver because it's so easy to get hit by this monster. I fucked this up twice, and it takes so long when you make mistakes. Don't make mistakes, guys. Don't be me. But a lot of people might look at this conversation as... People like to use the word gatekeeping now, which is a term that always existed. But back in my day, we just called those people cunts. And it's the idea that you're trying to stop people from being part of the club, or you're trying to stop people from, I don't know, having fun. I don't really know the full transgression to what these people think you're doing, but I don't say this from the perspective of a gatekeeping stance. I say this because it's reality. I'm not going to tell you guys that English is the hardest language to learn, because it's the only language I have learned, and I have no context of the others. But I have it on pretty good authority. There are plenty of languages that are far more difficult, far more technical, and would take me a considerable amount of time to learn. We don't even have tonality stuff, really, you know, compared to something like Mandarin or Fusanese and all the other ones, Cantonese. Incredibly complicated languages with incredibly complicated alphabets. So why do we now live at a time in games where every cunt thinks they can speak Mandarin? And I don't get it. You beat Sekiro, you can speak Mandarin, you know about parrying now? Have you ever played fucking Third Strike? Have you ever played Onimusha? Have you ever played Devil May Cry? Have you ever played Metal Gear Rising? Like, what have you played? You've platinum Sekiro, so you know parrying. Okay. Like, what is this? It's this strange thing. It's like stolen fucking valor, but for video games. And then you ask them, what's the hardest game you've ever played? And they say fucking Dark Souls 3. It's just like, what? Did you ever pass the driving test in Driver? You were a fucking nightmare. I I could pass an actual driving test before I could pass that fucking thing. And these people are like, oh, Dark Souls 3. It's just weird. It's so weird. And because difficulty's become mainstream now, we've got all these people analysing it. All these people talking about the nuance and the complexity and what's good design and what's bad design and how this should work and how that shouldn't work. And they're these fucking Platinum Souls veterans that have never played a hard game. And you might be thinking, this is an interesting thing to talk about, Chris, but why do you care? I have 10 years, over 10 years on this channel of me talking about difficulty, analysing difficulty, trying to help people navigate difficulty. And now we've got this fresh pack of cunts that want to tell me what difficulty is. And it's really fun for me because I like debating, I like the discourse, but I just think that there's this really dangerous sense of understanding, this Dunning-Kruger fucking syndrome, these drones that think they've done something, when in reality they've done nothing. And I think it's so dangerous to other people too, because they're speaking on the internet with a kind of confidence that makes you think they know what they're saying, but they're in clown world.